Good morning, everyone. I'm Carly Tex. I'll be the moderator for this first panel today. We are going to start off with a quick round of introductions of our speakers, and then we'll have 20 minutes per presentation, and then towards the end, we'll have 10 to 15 minutes of Q&A. So hold your questions till the end. And so I would like to introduce our first session. With our panelists, we have Callie Hill. Callie Hill is Turtle Clan, Tyendinaga, and is a lifetime resident of Tyonnheht. She is the Chief Administrative Officer of Tyonnheht, Onkwawenna Language and Cultural Center since 2004 and has dedicated much of her professional life to revitalizing Tyonnheht for the benefit of her community and the Mohawk Nation. Callie has a Master of Education degree in Indigenous Language Revitalization from the University of Victoria and a Bachelor of Arts in Indigenous Governance from the Toronto Metropolitan University. She continues to be a learner of the Mohawk language. Our next speaker after her is, or with her, is Ashley Maracle. Ashley Maracle is Tyonnheht from Tyonnheht through her father and Irish American through her mother. Ashley is a founding member of Bawaadan, a film and media arts production house by night and by day, is an academic dean at FNTI, an Indigenous Post-Secondary Institute in Tyonnheht. As a Tyonnheht woman, Ashley is interested in promoting individual and collective well-being to build vibrant Rotinanshawnee communities. Ashley's work has focused on the role of education in the future health, well-being, and empowerment of Indigenous youth, individuals, their families, communities, and nations. Ashley has her Master's in Indigenous Governance from the University of Victoria and recently began her PhD studies at Queen's University in the Cultural Studies program. Also on our panel is Ryan Lopez, Cultural Specialist for Tunica-Biloxi Tribe and Vice Chair of the USET Cultural Heritage Committee, and also Elisabeth Pierite, Cultural Specialist for Tunica-Biloxi Tribe Language Cultural Revitalization Program. So what we'll do is we'll have 20 minutes per presentation, starting with Callie and Ashley, and then we'll turn it over to Ryan and Elisabeth. So with that, Callie and Ashley, you're welcome to stay there or come up and use the podium, and they're going to present 6 strings. It's on.
Hello. Are we good? Okay. Yeah, say what kunuarado se wagwego guanushios ni yungyats ne Onkwawenna dano Callie Hill ni yungyats ne Jorhanza wagunyatung genyung kehaga ni wakunjoda kuntege ni diwageno dano kuntege genagari. I'm Callie Hill. I am, and thank you for the introduction. I feel obliged to do it in my language, so I hope you don't mind the repetition. I'm Turtle Clan of the Mohawk Nation, and I'm from Tyonnheht, or Tyendinaga, Mohawk territory, as some of you may know it as, and I've lived there most of my life. I work for Tyonnheht Onkwawenna Language and Cultural Center in Tyonnheht, and it's an incorporated not-for-profit with charitable status. And it was founded in 2000 by a grassroots group of community members who were very concerned about the critical and declining state of Mohawk language and culture in our community. And so over the last 24 years, the staff and the board have worked very diligently to reverse that decline. And we do that through programming, Mohawk language programming, through a early years program for young children. We have a primary immersion school from kindergarten to grade 4, actually grade 5 this year. And we have both accredited and non-accredited Mohawk language programs for adults as well. So our work is guided by a strategic plan, and it's reviewed annually by our board of directors. And the work is also guided by a broader strategic plan for Kanien'keha that was developed by our community. And both of the plans, the mandate of that, of all the work that we do, is producing speakers of Kanien'keha, of the Mohawk language. So the project that this film we are going to share with you, it was part of a larger project that was funded by the Ontario Trillium Foundation. And it's about the preservation and animation of cultural heritage. And it's focused on an archival document that we in our community have been familiar with for many years and really wanted to do something with it. And if all of you are researchers, you're probably familiar with the document. The title of the document, now let me not get it wrong here, Proceedings of an Indian Council held at the Mohawk Village in the Bay of Quinte from the 2nd to the 10th of September 1800 on the differences existing among the Indians of that village. And so there were several components of our project. The biggest one was this film that you'll see shortly. We also included all age categories in the community on the project. So we had the high school students that did like a diorama of a condolence ceremony as well. We had several virtual talks because this all happened in 2021 and we were still all very concerned about COVID. So we had a couple of virtual talks on traditional and contemporary governance and Indigenous research methodologies, and those were all very well attended in the community and outside, I guess, because it was virtual. Let me just see here. So the project was really an opportunity for us to tell this story, but more importantly, to tell it in our language, in Kanien'keha. And it doesn't have any English subtitles. That's why we've handed out a program for you. You can read the synopsis so that you get a gist of what is going on in the film. We had a team of researchers, of the staff from the Cultural Center, a writing team. There was a lot of people that came together to produce this, and Ashley and her husband's company as well, Bawaadan Creatives, were the creative directors of the project. So the film has been viewed or chosen at a film festival in New Zealand. It showed at a film festival in Ottawa, Ontario, and also at Imaginative in Toronto. So we're very proud of the work that we were able to do. The broad goal of the project was really to educate Indigenous and non-Indigenous people about important aspects of Haudenosaunee cultural heritage. And there are the panels also that I should mention that are in the coffee room. So they were part of this project, and we pulled out like 8 major themes from the paper, and you can read about them as well. We'll leave them up for the next couple of days. But we do have a longer-term goal to produce a longer, full-length, 60-minute docudrama. So wish us luck in getting funding for that.
Sego, Sewagwego, Deone Ratawari Nyangets, Maracle de Waxnazare. My name is Ashley Maracle. I'm here as a member of the Bawaadan Collective, and like Callie was saying, we were the creative directors for the short that you'll see momentarily. So I just wanted to say Niogwa as well for all of the organizers for the conference. Am I going in and out on this? No, I'm good. Okay. Sorry, sometimes I get feedback and sometimes I don't, so I wasn't sure. Yeah, so I just wanted to say Niogwa for all of the organizers for the conference. It's an honor to be here alongside Callie, and I'm also here with my daughter, Yujisto Gorokwas, who's at the back. So thank you very much for watching. And I will apologize for all of the other presenters if she's a little wily later. I'll try to make sure that she's semi-contained. No promises, though. So as I was saying, I'm here as a member of the Bawaadan Collective. We're an Indigenous-owned and operated film and media arts production house. And we specialize in taking a community approach toward each of the pieces that we're working on. That's something that we take very seriously and we take a lot of pride in as well. So Yuma, my husband, was not able to come. Our son is actually an immersion student at the Everlasting Tree School in Six Nations. So our son attending school unfortunately took the priority this time. But we're very proud that he attends an immersion school, and for us that's one of the driving forces as well to support Indigenous language production pieces as well. For us, we really want to make sure that we're uplifting Indigenous voices and that our youth can see themselves in our works. Our son, Wasea, again, he attends a Mohawk immersion school, so it's something that he takes a lot of pride in when he does see some of the language pieces that we produce. And he's had the honor of being in a couple of different pieces, not this one. He was a bit too young, but to speak to this one really quickly, before we show it, Callie and a team of writers, as she was saying, they ended up drafting a script. So it was a really beautiful opportunity for everybody to come together, review the document, discuss the important elements for each of us and the things that each of us took away, which was a really unique opportunity because so many of us were latching on to different parts of the document. There's so many really rich themes in it. But one of the things that was really important to us as a group was really showcasing the hidden voices. And I forget the presenter's name earlier, I was chasing her. But that was something I really appreciated, was the hidden voices within some of the archival materials and the focus on starting to pull on that thread and bring those voices to the forefront. And that's something that we tried to do with this piece. So the document itself focuses on the council, which would have included the men's voices. And in this piece, we really focused on ensuring that you heard and saw the women as well. So that was something that we really wanted to ensure was brought to the forefront. And so with that, I think that we're ready to start the short.
All right, let's turn it to, well, thank you for your presentation, Ashley and Callie. That was wonderful, and I'm sure there are some questions that we can get to at the end of the panel. So let's turn it over to Ryan and Elisabeth. Go ahead and take it away.
Sehi Lapu, Ima Ryan Haitisa, or Iwipina Ryan Ayanche. Hi, good morning, my name is Ryan. I've stated at both in Tunica and Biloxi. And as stated before, I'm one of our cultural specialists in the Language and Cultural Revitalization Program, or LCRP for short, as we like to call it, because it is a mouthful.
Ani, Sehilapu, Ima Elisabeth Pierite Etisa. My name is Elisabeth Pierite. Luchierone Buruk Atani, I teach the Tunica language. I'm happy to be here. We're going to talk a little bit about our program, about our tribe, and also 2 projects that we have going on. So yes, we are from the Language and Culture Revitalization Program. Okay. How should I signal to go to the next slide? Or should we stand up? Okay, we'll do that.
Thank you. There you go.
Okay. So, Hatika, once again, Elisabeth Pierite, Ryan Lopez, we're cultural specialists. For our tribe, our program officially began in 2014, and I was just speaking with Brian that I realized that CNAIR was founded in 2014. Okay, our tribe is located in central Louisiana. We are an amalgamation of tribes, tribal, bloodlines, historically that came together, families that came together in the 18th century. Today, mainly Tunica and Biloxi are the main bloodlines within our tribe. And there are families that identify as Choctaw or having Choctaw heritage. We were federally recognized in 1981. We're among the 4 federal tribes in Louisiana, including Coshada, Chitimacha, and Jina Band of Choctaw. And today there are around 1,700 people within our tribe.
Just to touch on that, a lot of the Choctaw does come from the Biloxi Choctaw unions that happened in the past. And yes, we did have a baby boom in the recent years.
Our tribal lands are located in central Louisiana in Marksville, but we also have families that moved to larger cities like Houston and Chicago, and that was, around the 30s, when families were in search of work, better education. Historically, we were located in, the Tunica were located in northwest Mississippi, and Biloxi, of course, were further south. Gradually, the tribes moved, the Tunica moved down the Mississippi River and crossed over the river into Louisiana, and same with Biloxi. Eventually the tribes merged. I just want to mention, so our program started in 2014, and as I said, CNAIR was founded in 2014. In 2015, I was going back through my emails. 2015, I had initially contacted Brian, and one of our council members, Brenda Littinger, former council members, she had contacted APS, and she had gotten copies of Mary Haas notebooks. Mary Haas was the linguist that worked with our tribe, Chief Sesostre Yushikong during the 1930s, to document the Tunica language. She was also working with other tribes in the area at that time. There's a story that she had even brought Sesostre down when she visited Chitimacha people. But yes, I just wanted to mention that that in 2015, our program originally got copies of the notebooks, and I'll let Ryan speak more on the project that we have going on with those.
Okay. So this is a slide, an insert from one of the Haas notebooks. I believe that's from notebook 14. We have 13 notebooks, but it's labeled numbered 1 through 14 because apparently she thought the number 13 was bad luck. So usually when somebody asks, "Oh, where can I find that in the Haas notebooks?" Like, "Oh, notebook 13," and then they go look and they're looking. Well, I don't see it. That's because there's not one. But this talks about Onilupi Hirani, or what's other words known as Indian pink. This comes from something Sesostre told her. It is a plant. So Onilupi Hirani in Tunica means dead person plant or medicine. What they would do is apparently mix it with the shot to shoot spirits. So what I've taken from, and with the work of Dr. No, he's not a doctor, is he? Nathan? Yeah, he is. Dr. Nathan Wadet of the University of Virginia, is the shot would be like the mixture of the gunpowder and everything that they would use for the muskets. We're trying to figure out maybe they just rubbed it on the bows and arrows. So we have stories of the Tunica people actually hunting spirits. Which this leads to this slide. This is a fragmented story that was told by Sesostre to Dr. Haas. And it's pretty much they would take a gun, they would mix the stinkweed, rub it on the gun thoroughly, and then they would shoot the ghost. The other fragment is they would take another species of plant, put it in the gun, and shoot the ghost with it. The other species we believe is the Onilupi Hirani, which is the Indian pink. They did have the plant, or she did put the plant in the book. As they came across plants, she would put them in the book, but apparently they fell out. Because it would be even better to have those plants so we can make sure it was the actual species they were talking about. Haas was somewhat into the plants, but she couldn't or Sesostri was the one that really couldn't recall like what the plant was exactly called. So not only are we going through trying to figure out a lot of that, it's also trying to make sure we're going with the right species of plants, because as anybody knows, if you take the wrong medicine, you know, adverse effects. All that actually originated or kind of started our ethnobotany project. So like a lot of things, we lost our traditional ways of using plants for healing and other stuff, and I was wanting to get that back. So with the help of Nathan and a few others, we started with a team of 2. Now we're about a team of 8 altogether. We've started to document the traditional uses of the Tunica through Haas, and we've actually been able to use some Biloxi sources to find some or make connections with some of the other plants. And also working with other tribes such as the Caddo Nation, the Chickasaw Nation, Chitimacha and Coshada. We've been kind of reaching out, getting with them and seeing, hey, are these the same plants y'all are talking about? Because in the Haas notebook, she does document where Sesostri stated, oh, the Coshada used this plant, the Chickasaw used this plant, the Chitimacha used this plant for this. It's mostly dyes and stuff, but there is some mention of, I believe, the magnolia flower being used to help with headaches and other, like, I don't want to say mental ailments, but like blood pressure ailments. So we started that. It is going to become a book that is in Tunica, but we've also been making it available online using Wikipedia or Wikiseed. I always forget which one it is. But these are somewhat available to see online. We have the links, which should be hopefully available here soon, for people to go through and browse. And I always make sure to emphasize, you know, I am not a medical doctor, no, anyway. So whatever you guys want to use these plants for, you're using it of your own free will, and we are not liable for anything that happens to you. Want to make sure I emphasize that. But I have reached out to, in the past 2 weeks, we had our first charity run. The tribe held our first charity run. We raised $10,000 for the American Indian Cancer Foundation. And through that, I was actually able to make 2 ladies that are connected through a lot of other traditional healers throughout the country. And with their help, I've been in touch with some other traditional healers. And hopefully we can expand more of just the ethnobotany to more of the medicinal uses instead of just dyes, cloths, and that sort. So a lot of headaches, but they're worth it in the end when we can hopefully bring back these traditions to the tribe. And as Elisabeth mentioned to us yesterday, they've submitted some more ethnographic cards that we were not aware of, correct, Liz?
Yeah, so recently Brian sent us some new information that we're going to be going through. These are ethnographic cards from Mary Haas. Some of it may be, you know, the same information, but, you know, because we have the ethnobotany project going on, we're going to go back through these cards and make sure, you know, we didn't miss any, or, you know, see if we can find any new information. So it is an ongoing project.
Yeah, and it's a project that we hope to have finished. We were very optimistic in the beginning that we could do 100 entries within a year. We're now in like year 3 of the ethnobotany project, and we have 23 to 25 entries done. So, but with this, and actually some of, we were given some of Frank Speck's notes. He documented a lot of the Homa people's uses. So hopefully with that, we'll be able to go through, and Haley, you'll be hearing from me soon. And making sure, you know, that's also being represented. And, you know, of course, we're going to put all our sources in there. So yes, this is, I was hoping to dig through this last night to make sure I was ready for today with some of this, but yeah, internet issues all the time, people.
Okay, so this brings us to our next project. These are photos from the Frank Speck collection, dating back to the 30s, 40s. They were taken in Marksville. I first seen these photos when I was in college, and they were copies that Dr. Hiram P. Gregory had. And at that time, I did not know that they were that they were here at the APS. And there's stories, of Frank Speck coming to Marksville, but you don't read that. You can't read that. It's not written, anywhere. It's not published anywhere. So there's family stories that I knew of him going to Marksville. So as I was saying, in 2015, I initially contacted Brian. We received the notebooks, Mary Haas notebooks, but then, working on other things, I was able to, get copies of these photos. And, we've used them over the years for cultural workshops. I'll show you where we have them printed in our current tribal history booklet. So there were these photos. And, as I became more curious about, Frank Speck's visit to Marksville, I found letters that Robert Stewart Neitzel, who's an archaeologist, who's working in Marksville at, it was also during the 30s. He was working with James Ford, and that was on the archaeological sites, lower Mississippi Valley archaeological sites, including Marksville Mounds, which our tribe now has possession of. But within these letters, I read that my great-grandfather, he and, others from my family met with Frank Speck, and Frank Speck was purchasing items that they made. So I became curious, where are these things going? But, there's a lot of information that I learned from these letters. There's this great sketch, of how he set up the frame, to stretch out the hide. So we not only have a photo, but we also have a sketch. And then there's also measurements, of the frame and sketches of his tools. And, just interesting information, like he was purchasing 2 hides at $2 each. And there's plenty of work that goes into, tanning a hide. 3 pairs of moccasins at 75 cents each. It was just, it's something really interesting to me.
Next slide. I was just going to say, you probably copied Eli, because I know that's all the pictures of Eli we have. There's always a cigarette in his mouth.
Okay. So, that was my question. Where were these things going? And so I learned, that some of these items ended up at the Smithsonian, at the National Museum of the American Indian, and these are the items, from Frank Speck, from my family, that he was sending with him.
Next slide.
Sure. And, not only at the Smithsonian, but, eventually I discovered that there's also a collection at Denver Art Museum. And when I seen, what was there, the list of items that were at the Denver Art Museum, I was really blown away, because there's a lot more there. Over the years, it's been sort of piecey, the information that I've gotten from them. I believe at first it was just a list. And on the next slide, you'll see that, but not yet, you'll see that there's catalog cards, which are they're sketches, brightly colored sketches of the clothing that's there, and the clothing that's there, they're actually doll clothing. But still, you can see, how our tribal dress, was, how they made it. But, there's plenty there: blowgun darts, cow horns, spoons, cane baskets, the tools that my great-grandfather used, a cypress knee, water drum, stickball sticks, moccasins, and a headdress. As far as the clothing, and an actual, as far as I know, there is not an actual picture, photograph of the clothing, but there's, listings of those. So I have an idea of what's there. And on the next slide, you'll see, oh, where'd it go? Okay, maybe it's after. Okay, catalog cards should be after this slide. But with this slide, okay, all right. Actually, with this slide, I wanted to show you that this is a photo from APS. This is my grandfather in the center and his two sisters standing next to him, and they're wearing, this sort of headdress. And that headdress, there's actually one at Denver Art Museum. So the headdress that they're wearing, is actually, there's one at Denver Art Museum. Okay. All right. Okay, but with the information that we're finding, in 2017 we revised the Tunica-Biloxi tribe, its culture and people, which was originally printed in 1987, and we used the photos from APS and other places. And so this is how we're using the information that we find. Okay. And as we work with our community, we're instructors of language and culture. So the information that we find, it influences our workshops. The focus of our workshops. It also influences our language teaching curriculum. So the language that we find gets included into language lessons. The photographs that we find get included into, the teaching materials. There's just so much, it just becomes, what we are able to teach ourselves, and then turn around and teach our tribal youth, the families within our tribal community. There's more work to do. Potentially there's other repositories, other collections that we should look at, and always whenever you're doing things, funding, that becomes a question for us, how we'll get these things done. But in the case of the Frank Speck photos and the collections, I definitely want to go to NMAI and Denver Art Museum and photograph these things up close, because for the clothing especially, as a maker, my interest is how is it made? What are the measurements? It's doll clothing, but I can resize this to, someone, so it's wearable by, someone. So any thoughts that you'd like to add?
Oh, yeah. Like Liz said, these are just a few of the projects that we kind of showed off. All together, we got so many different things going on. We both wear hats, multiple hats for the tribe, whether it's just working for language and culture, helping out with different events and everything. And it's always, thankfully this year we're actually going to have the first building that's going to have Tunica and Biloxi language on it, and that's going to be our new Justice Center. That's been in the works for a few months, and the architect we worked with for it actually spent about good 2 to 3 weeks in our museum documenting different things. So if you guys ever visit the Tunica-Biloxi Reservation and see our new Justice Center, you'll see how the rim of the building has these beams sticking out, and throughout different parts of the day, it's going to show different styles of, or different patterns of basketry on the side of the wall. So that is, and then now we're also updating a lot of the stuff. Like Elisabeth said, it's mostly funding. We went from 8 people to just 2, me and Elisabeth, working full-time for LCRP, and it's getting a little tedious, I will say. But hopefully with, you know, a lot of the stuff we have going on, we'll be able to start getting a lot of the projects up and rolling again. For me, it is, like Liz said, I want to make sure when we do something, it is representative of Tunica-Biloxi. So making sure that accuracy of our history, our story is there for these projects.
We welcome you to connect with us and follow us, check us out, you know, keep up with what we're doing. So.
Yes. We're on all social media, so if you want to scan that, it will take you to our link tree. It will also take you to our calendar, so if you're ever in the area and we have something going on, please stop by, hang out, see what we're doing. We could even give you all a tour. I know another big thing and that we're working on is we recently got the mound site acquired from the state, which is one of the oldest sites in Louisiana besides Poverty Point. And hopefully that will be available in the next coming months for people to start going through and learning the history of that mound site. Tikach, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for those wonderful presentations. So I was told we had an hour from the time we started, so we do have some time, 10 minutes or so for questions. Is there anything from the audience? I'll come down and take the mic and, We're good with mics. Okay. All right. So I will not come down with the mic. I will stay right here. And we'll start with questions from the in-person attendees. And then once we're through with that, we'll see who's online.
My name is Delaney. I'm currently residing within Haudenosaunee territory at the University at Buffalo. Wado or Nyawe for your presentations. Callie and Ashley, I have a question for you. I'm really familiar with Teresa McCarthy and her work in factionalism, especially in her book, In Divided Unity. I have two questions, I guess. Could you speak to why factionalism was important to highlight, especially in relation to the condolence ceremony pre all of the goings-on with the British and French? And I am more familiar with condolence canes. Could you or would you feel comfortable speaking to the 6-string wampum that was highlighted in the film?
I'm sorry, Ashley's trying to help me hear. I didn't hear everything you said, so she's just trying to help me understand. So the first question you had was in regards to the factions within the community, is that?
Yes, I can speak louder. Why did you feel, or all of the creators of this film feel it was important to highlight factionalism, especially in relation to the condolence ceremony?
Oh, that's a big question. Are you familiar with the document that we're referencing in this project at all?
I'm only vaguely familiar.
Okay.
I don't want to say I
All right,
am
I just
familiar.
didn't know how deep to go.
Go.
At that time in our community, there were very clearly two sets of people, Captain John on one side and Isaac and the Hills on the other. And I think, and this is just my opinion, I feel like Captain John was more progressive, his party, and the Hills were maybe more traditional. And just the things that come out in that document, and it's such a rich document. I mean, even still now when I read it, I learn something new every time. Captain John, he accuses the Hills about, letting the women, you go let the women have too many meetings. And we all know that the women would have had a very, very vital role in everything that went on during that 9-day council. So I just think it's important because it's really a part of our history. It happened in our community. It was something that we all learned from, we lived from. There were 2 murders, bloody murders. It was really violent, and nobody went to jail. We found a way to resolve it using our own traditional forms of governance with the strings and the belt. And if anybody knows where that belt is, I'm on a hunt. I mean, according to the document, William Klaus brings a belt. I mean, he has to have brought the belt with him. I feel like he brought the belt with him with the intention of making peace amongst those 2 parties. So, I mean, it was important because it really was the basis of, in my opinion, of what that piece was about. Do you want to add anything to that?
I think to speak to the factionalism part of it, that period in Haudenosaunee history as well, the document really references a lot regarding the sale of land in New York State as well. And so that was one of the driving frustrations, I think, for individuals involved in that conflict. So they were living at the time when the sale of land was a current ongoing issue and wondering what happened with the funds that individuals were involved in that sale would have received. And so there's a lot referenced within the document that isn't necessarily stated bluntly, but when you look at the context of what was taking place, it is interesting to go back and look at all of the things dividing our communities at that time. They wouldn't have been in the community that long prior to that murder taking place, so it would have been at the time when everyone was settling. And I think that that's important for us to remember now as well when we look at our communities and see some of those ongoing the differences within our communities today, that they do still have deep-seated roots within what happened at that time. It was interesting when we were filming because that was some of the stories that were coming out from individuals involved in the piece, that there still was that kind of, you're from that side of the community and we're from this side, without necessarily understanding where some of those differences might have come from. But Joe, that was one of the stories that he had shared, was around how that was still very alive and present when he was in school, and kind of still seeing that, remnants of that sentiment with his children. So I think that it's something we can't address, the factionalism piece. And from my understanding, which is very, very, very newbie, I will admit, and maybe other people here can speak to this more in depth, but I know when we have a wampum ceremony every year at my son's school, and it's the commitment. So each of the families bring a string of wampum, and we exchange it with the teachers for that year. So that's something that they addressed at the school ceremony this year, was that in some of the original stories, that string of wampum was actually the first, that was the first kind of introduction of wampum to our communities. I can't speak to that in depth, so I apologize, but maybe other people could.
I'll just add quickly the title 6 strings, because it references 6 strings in the document, and that also is it's a mystery as well. I think there's not enough there, and we have to also remember that this whole 9-day council was done Auskot Ganyungeha, all in the language. There was 2 translators that were there that were, and so they were transcribing what they thought they saw. So some of the ideas that we've thought about that maybe the 6 strings might represent are because there were 2 deaths, and maybe it was the 3 strings condolence for the 2 deaths. That's just one of the things, and these were some of the rich conversations we had when we were studying this document and figuring out how this film was going to look. So, thank you.
We're going to toss a question online.
Hi, yes. We have a question from Dorcas Johnson from Kent State University. And the question is, how can we as non-Indigenous persons help in getting your history out to build potential equity? Thank you.
The question was to build, what was the last part?
Building equity for, so how can non-Indigenous people support in getting this history out?
Good question. Who wants to take that one?
Yeah. I guess I can. I mean, for us, speaking for the Tunica-Biloxi, it'd be making sure the accurate history is being told, and it's like I'm always told there's always several stories, so you want to make sure it's the right one being told. It's also, just be involved. There's a lot of tribes that do allow outsiders to come in to hang out, talk, and everything, and that's how it starts, is communications, talking, making sure you're getting first approval to talk with them, because it's always the major thing. Because I know for us, we have a lot of our stuff open for people to just come in so they can learn, like, what the Tunica-Biloxi, who we are, what we do, how we represent ourselves, and again, it just starts with talking with somebody.
I'm going to jump on that as well and just say it's important for to develop strong relationships as well, and being really mindful and aware, I think, is critical, to make sure that you're putting Indigenous people forward as well, so that we're the ones we're the ones kind of up here, making sure that we're sharing our stories and sharing stories on behalf of our communities as well. I think that that's a really critical piece, is making sure that Indigenous voices are being uplifted and given that space to share our own stories.
Anyone else? You want to answer? Go ahead.
I'll just sort of echo what they're saying. Building relationships, yes, and communication, collaboration, at each level of what it is that you're doing. And also, initially it's important to understand the community. How does the community operate? In order to do something, what sort of approval do you need? Do you need approval of, programs director, or do you need to go further and get approval from a tribal administrator or tribal council? Elders, is there an elders council? So understanding the community, how the community operates, and who all that are involved in decision making, and respecting that.
Just one last quick comment. We're always looking for money. All of us are looking for money to do our projects. So if anyone knows of any funding sources, I think we would always welcome that information.
What is our time looking like? Do we have time for one more?
I think we're at time.
We're at time.
Yeah, I think we're
Okay,
at time.
so with that, we will bring this session to a close, and I'm sorry to those who had their hands up. I'm sure the speakers will be here, so if you have questions or comments on their presentations, I'm sure they would be happy to speak with you and keep that line of communication going. So thank you to the speakers. Let's show some appreciation to them for their time today.